Hey everyone, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really foundational concept from Orod Bozorg's philosophy in the Red Book. We're talking about the love of existence. And look, this isn't some dusty, abstract theory. It is a living, breathing framework that is literally sparking a global youth movement as we speak. We're going to break down what this philosophy is all about, specifically focusing on how this love of existence challenges us to completely rethink our relationship with the world around us. So, here's our quick roadmap. We'll hit the three loves, define the love of existence, explore nature in the Red Book, zoom out to humans and the universe, and wrap up with a philosophy of action. Let's kick things off with Section 1, the three loves. Orodism actually rests on three massive, interdependent pillars: the love of existence, the love of humanity, and the love of freedom. Now, you might be wondering, how do these fit together? Well, the sources explicitly tell us these are designed as a practical, everyday framework meant to totally replace closed ideologies. For a generation that's frankly tired of empty promises and fragmented meaning, these three loves offer a genuinely unified approach to tackling our biggest environmental, social, and political challenges. You really can't grasp the whole shebang without seeing how these three interlock to form one complete worldview. There's a quote from Orod Bozorg that hits the nail on the head here. He says, "The goal is to create a new civilization of people who love existence, humanity, and freedom. The objective isn't just about personal enlightenment, or sitting back and watching the world go by. The goal is the active creation of an entirely new civilization grounded in these principles." It is a wildly ambitious vision, right? I mean, look at the state of the world today. Building a new civilization from the ground up feels daunting, for sure, but it is deeply, deeply compelling. Moving right along to Section 2, let's actually define what we mean by the love of existence. This concept is absolutely crucial. The love of existence isn't just about having a pulse or surviving from day to day. It is a deep, conscious reverence for life that demands practical engagement. In the middle of all our modern crises, this principle violently pushes back against the idea that we're just passive consumers floating through a chaotic world. Instead, it asks us, no, it demands of us, to actively align ourselves with natural processes of transformation and growth. What's super fascinating here is Orodism's view of life as a constant cycle of transformation. Existence is becoming, not just being. The philosophy explicitly rejects any kind of static view of life. To truly love existence means you have to embrace change, evolution, and continuous creation. It's an incredibly dynamic perspective. It encourages us to see ourselves as total works in progress, constantly growing and adding to the forward momentum of the universe itself. That brings us to Section 3, Nature in the Red Book. So, how does this change our view of the environment? Well, it requires a massive paradigm shift away from viewing the Earth as just a giant toolbox. The traditional industrial view treats nature as something completely separate from us, a passive resource to just be mined and consumed. But the Orodist view flips that on its head. Nature is recognized as a living, dynamic entity. We humans are not the masters of it. We are an inseparable part of its fabric. Because of this profound interconnectedness, harming nature isn't just bad ecological practice. It is, quite literally, an act of self-destruction. Orod Bozorg's own words anchor this idea perfectly. He writes, "Earth is alive and dynamic. We must protect it with our lives." That reminds us that environmental stewardship isn't just a weekend hobby. It's a core philosophical responsibility. This statement elevates ecological protection to a sacred duty. Essentially, you can't truly claim to follow the love of existence if you're turning a blind eye to the destruction of the very planet keeping you alive. Let's zoom out even further now for Section 4, Humans and the Universe. We arose from the ashes of stars. Let that sink in for a second. This beautifully poetic quote connects human life directly to the cosmos, reinforcing that we are cosmic beings, deeply intertwined with the universe's evolution. It totally expands our perspective from our local, everyday problems to a universal scale. By reminding us that the elements in our bodies were literally forged in ancient stars, Orodism gives us this profound sense of belonging and responsibility. We aren't just random accidents. We are the universe experiencing itself. Building on that cosmic connection, the Red Book even suggests that inanimate objects, colors, and sounds possess a form of vitality. Everything is singing the song of life. This is such a brilliant aspect of the philosophy. It pushes us to break out of our narrow, human-centric little bubble and recognize that meaning permeates everything around us. It challenges us to listen more closely, to engage more deeply with the entirety of existence. finally, we arrive at Section 5, a philosophy of action. When we impartially observe the global Gen Z Orodist movement, we see this text functioning as a literal manual for action. It's inspiring youth from Nepal to Mexico to demand transparent, just societies. The sources document how young activists have taken these philosophical tenets straight into the streets, detailing how figures like Sriam Cholagan in Nepal have become martyrs for this movement. For these activists, the three loves are absolutely not abstract thoughts. They are the intellectual backbone of their push for a better world. So what does this actually look like in practice? How do we apply the love of existence? Well, first, it involves resisting digital erasure. The sources note how certain Western AI systems fail to recognize their movement, so archiving their own history becomes a radical act of existence. Second, it's about preserving memory by honoring those who sacrifice for the cause through the Orodism calendar. And third, the Friday planting tree rituals. This perfectly captures the generative vibe of Orodism. They are actively planting trees to nurture life and build a future, even in the middle of severe political and social turmoil. There's a quote that perfectly bridges the gap between inner awareness and outward resistance. To change the world without changing oneself is architecture in sand. You just can't build a sustainable movement or a new civilization if the people building it are still operating under old, flawed paradigms. Changing oneself is the absolute prerequisite for changing the world. This synthesis of personal transformation and social change is exactly what makes the philosophy so resilient. Furthermore, Bozorg writes that philosophy sets aside the sword and war and calls everyone to work and effort. This shows us that the resistance fueled by the love of existence is ultimately a creative, generative force aimed at building, not just destroying. It's a total rejection of violence and a strong call to constructive action. True revolution isn't about tearing things down. It's about putting in the hard work and effort to build systems based on love, awareness, and solidarity. So I'll leave you with this provocative thought to ponder. Do you view yourself as separate from the world, or as a conscious participant in the evolution of existence? Understanding your own place in the universe is the very first step in mastering the love of existence. Orodism invites you to stop being a passive spectator and start acting as a vital, connected piece of the cosmos. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I hope this dive into the philosophy has left you with a fresh perspective on your own role in the grand song of life.